Hello, I'm Sheila Bender, and I'm here today to introduce the four of us who have taken over the Northwind Arts Center Poetry Reading Series for this year, 2020 into 2021. We are having our first experiments with moving the series online, and today we'd like to introduce ourselves by reading from some of our work. The four of us are myself, Sheila Bender, Holly Hughes, Linda Robertson, and Sharon Carter. And even though I introduced us out of order, we'll read in alphabetical order. Sheila Bender's poems have appeared recently in her hometown newspaper, the Port Townsend Leader, as well as her town's farmers market anthology, Wording the Land. She has published over the years in many print and online literary journals. Her books include the poetry anthology Behind Us, The Way Grows Wider, and the prose memoir, A New Theology, Turning to Poetry in a Time of Grief. Sheila teaches in person and online for several venues, including her own website, writingitreal.com, where you can learn more about her instructional writing books from McGraw-Hill and other publishers, and her work facilitating those who write from personal experience. The two poems I've chosen to read today are one that holds memories and one that is on a spot very near to where we all live. The first one I'll read is called Letter to My Father, Dead Now 15 Years. This morning, I thought to wrap up the coins accumulating in a small aluminum camping pot where Kurt and I empty our pockets. As I counted quarters into piles of 10, nickels and dimes, then pennies, as I remembered the sound of you emptying your pockets at the highboy dresser in the bedroom you shared with Mom, I pictured myself at the gold-flecked Formica table in our post-war apartment, learning to use the bank's paper wrappers. It was hard to get the roll started. One finger slipped into an end, and it was work getting the first coin to lay flat inside, not on an edge. Years before, you had brought home a ceramic hydrant, bright red and a couple of feet tall. How like you to have not a pig, but something urban, something familiar, as growing up in Brooklyn. Now I heard again the drop of coins into the slot at the top of your bank, felt that old question popping up inside me. Is it filled yet? There was no plug at the bottom. You would have had to hammer it open, never to be used again. I think you had fun shattering one end, destroying something instead of maintaining it with the care usual for you. The sound of letting go and the slow accumulation of wealth spilling out. Your words over the years, loose change, no small potatoes. Here, the rubber bands around the new bankrolls, maroon ones for pennies, beige ones for nickels, blue ones for dimes, red for quarters. The counted coins between my fingers, the weight of the filled wrapper, how like woven Chinese finger traps I remembered that paper seemed as I tried to slip my forefinger out so I could please you by crushing the end to keep the coins contained. I had made a call to heaven, Dad, standing there at my table, remembering you teaching me that change equals dollars, remembering listening to bagpipe music on a vinyl record you bought from the sale bin at the A&P, teaching me bargains can expand horizons. When Kurt woke up just now, he saw the wrapped coins and told me he'd read that the chances of winning the lottery are less than the chances of dropping a penny from the top of the Empire State Building into a cup placed on the sidewalk. I imagined not one coin, but a skyscraper full of them, the silvery sound of young me and a young you and a table full of wealth. And now I want to read one that is from a location we know called the U.S. Navy Explosives Reserve, and this is called On Island Park Road at the U.S. Navy Explosives Reserve. We look the other way at trees where hefty western robins hide in the highest of bare alder branches, mid-morning sun, creating shiny golden shields on their orange breasts. On Portage Beach, we watch a kingfisher fly quickly across the channel and dive for food he spotted near the far shore, while close to us, a blue jay flits into dense fall brambles. The frightening storage of explosives across the street hovers when if only the world could right itself would languish behind the long fence topped with coils of barbed wire. We note the water's current moving faster, watch more birds seeking food among the red, berry-laden tops of the madrona trees and the bold white snowberries. Canada geese fly swiftly eastward too in their formation as we puzzle over a thin line that hangs from a bridge with a rounded end high over the water. Standing on the oyster shells of a midden, we realize the thin line suspends a light for boats to heed positions as we heed ours, relishing this tenuous beauty. Okay, next up in alphabetical order is Sharon Carter. Sharon M. Carter is a poet and visual artist. She obtained her medical degree from Cambridge University and retired, having worked in both British and American nonprofit systems. Her work has been published in many literary magazines and online, including Terra Nova, Pontoon, Exhibition, Raven Chronicles, and Ars Medica. She has been a Jack Straw writer and Hedgebook resident. A manuscript entitled Quiver is forthcoming.
I'm going to read two short poems from my manuscript. The first one is called El Pindal Cave, Asturias. This is famous for its prehistoric rock art in northern Spain. Sun delivers opals to the morning sky. Cicadas high up in eucalyptus drum their release from damp earth and root sap. Our trail crunches from the ghostly litter of their discarded shells, winds along cliffs to caves where a screen of vines defines the boundary between light and dark. A Cerbric bulldog dozes in the heat, head slumped on a platter of paws. His eyelids shutter as we approach. Tourists emerge into daylight, resurrected from the underworld, no longer silent as shed skin, unable to speak their names. And the second one is called Fruit. When I split a pomegranate that summer's day, I thought, dessert, Persephone, then ovarian tumor. I saw a malignant mass whose hunger could burn through a young woman's body. Spongy red flesh left to decay on its fallopian tube. Identical cells like pomegranate seeds, repeating. Thank you.
Next up is Holly Hughes. She is the author of Hold Fast, Passings, and Sailing by Ravens, co-author of The Pen and the Bell, Mindful Writing in a Busy World, and editor of the award-winning anthology Beyond Forgetting, Poetry and Prose About Alzheimer's Disease. Her fine art chapbook, Passings, received an American Book Award in 2017. After commercial fishing for salmon in Alaska, skippering a 65-foot schooner, working as a naturalist on ships, and teaching writing at the college level, she now lives on the Olympic Peninsula, where she leads writing and mindfulness workshops in Alaska and the Northwest and consults as a writing coach.
Thank you, Sheila. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here with my fellow Northwind Arts Gallery Reading Series compatriots. And I'm going to start out with a poem from my collection Hold Fast, which came out in January. And I did give a few readings from it before we were sheltering in place. So I thought I'd share another poem. And this was the last poem I wrote in this collection. It was inspired by hearing Linda Beard's read this poem, read a cento. And it was a form I was familiar with but hadn't yet tried. And so the cento means in Latin patchwork or collage. And it's a poem made up of lines from other poets. And I thought it would be a great way to honor some of the poets I admire. So here's my cento, and it's called Each Bird Singing. What seas, what shores, what gray rocks, and what islands and scent of pine and wood thrush singing through the fog. So you see, to reach the past is easy, a snap of the sea, and a third of a century passes. Good memory, if you are such a boat, tell me we did not falter in the vastness when we walked ashore. I am alone among the others who have stood here as they looked out over the snowy fields, holding their breath. What the train and the river were saying, no one could understand. We just stood there, breathing what was left of the night. The great light cage has broken up in the air, freeing, I think, about 1 million birds whose wild ascending shadows will not be back. Is light the last thing lost, or never lost at all? All's a scattering, a shining. There is time, still time, for one who can groan to sing, for one who can sing to be healed. We must risk delight, learn the flowers, go light, perhaps a speckled dream to wrestle in the night. Far out in a universe, a tomorrow we can't see is singing the last word of a song we heard long ago. Sparrow, your message is clear. It is not too late for my singing. With small hope from the center of darkness, it calls out again and again. And I just would like to acknowledge the poets from whom I borrowed the lines: Elizabeth Bishop, T.S. Eliot, Tess Gallagher, Jack Gilbert, Robert Hedin, Tom Jay, Galway Cannell, Ted Kluscher, Theodore Retke, Joan Swift, and Gary Snyder, who just turned 90 this week. And for my second poem, I'd like to read a more recent poem. This was written during the pandemic, early on. This was back in March, actually. And it's called Redefining Touch. And there's a short epigraph at the beginning. We'll be in touch. We'll touch in next week. We'll be out of touch. We must redefine what it means to be in touch. Be in touch with those you love, not with the abstract world with its terrible news, but with its steadfast rocks, its tangled roots. Listen to the news until you can't. Then go out the door, touch all you still can. Damp earth crumbling in your palm, tangled roots that burrow down into the dark, trusting what they'll find. Say no to crowds, to those you don't know for now. Stick with those you do. Reach out to the neighbor next door, even the one you quit talking to. Reach out to those alone, loved ones gone. Open your heart when you can no longer open your arms. Let in the pain of others because we must, but don't dwell there. Be the green tendril, the tangled root, reaching up, out, down into the dark, trusting the deep knowing bound into xylem and cell that she will find air, water, sun, that all may never be the same, that all will be well. Thank you.
And our next reader is Linda M Robertson. She's a graduate of Chatham University's low residency MFA program with a focus on environment, nature, and travel writing. While living in London with her daughter, she attended the poetry school and created a collection of poems inspired by visual art entitled Gaze. Linda is a member of a poetry group in Ireland comprised of American and Irish poets. She has published in various online and print journals, as well as a chapbook in 2002 entitled Reply of Leaves. In 2014, the Methow Conservancy published her poems, Letters to Julia, 1898 to 1899, The Methow Valley, in a fine press book. She is currently completing a full-length manuscript, The Missing.
Thank you. It's great to be here with my friends and poets today. I'm going to share two poems. The first one was written, inspired by going to Marrowstone Island to Fort Flagler. It was inspired by seeing a portable searchlight storage sign at Fort Flagler. And I wrote this in memory of my son, Evan. Searchlight. How far can it reach, this eye of light? I would aim its sight towards his last living day, or further, to years lit with snowfall and alpine lakes, traced by a boy on a board, to morning hours, reflecting burnished eyes, the sheen of his hair, astonished smile. Tonight, the quarter moon is a scar that burns upon this world altered. His future slit from mine by a glacier's sudden shiver. In a dream, I traverse the crest where sky joins earth, forage through time's talus and shale for boot prints, an agile echo, breathy relic. How far can it reach, this star of sight? If only I could send its arc through the night so he might follow its radiance back to me. And the second one is a poem I've been working on just these last weeks as we've been sheltering in place, and it's a letter poem. It's called A Letter Written During COVID-19 Shelter in Place, Week 6. Dear Solace, sometimes you are nothing more than sky, or two does browsing nearby green beneath cedars, or an eagle that claims the same limb over and over, whistling to the far away. 5 o'clock sunlight weaving its way through alder woods, tracking a gray squirrel's runaway tail. I discover you occasionally in the jigsaw puzzle with pieces enough to fill a quarter of the dining table. I join edges, then the vigorous violet sky, the rough alpine peaks. I am on my way to the lake that blurs all that rises above it. Will you be there? Today, old heartbreaks wash through me like rain. There seems no window I can close until I notice a heart-shaped vase filled with all hues of blue beach glass, a pair of tall Madonna votives, a photograph of myself and my blue-eyed husky forever paired in a field of balsam root and lupin on a May day's trail. In this time of separations, you often bring mother's palm to my forehead as I wake, though she's more than 3 years dead. Yesterday, you were a young seal in Discovery Bay, watching me, watching him. And the news of a small band of Mustangs trucked from Texas Killpen to California Sanctuary. You arrive on Sundays by telephone with my Irish friends, their voices, their poems. Solace, what did I assume? That during this long solitude, the hummingbirds might forget to return? The apricot begonia refuse its blooms? Thanks.
Thank you, everybody. Sheila for hosting and everyone else for writing such interesting and inspiring poems. We hope you will find this short recording enjoyable. Please check our Facebook page, Northwind Reading Series, and also check it out in the future for hopefully further virtual readings. Thank you very much. Goodbye.